Yeah, and Will, it's Cardboard Minutes.
I'm Nabil.
And it's been a couple weeks since I've had some videos out.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, the channel's definitely still going. I'm still posting on Instagram, which I'll put the link in the description if you want to see. But life has been busy. I've got a full-time job now instead of working by contract. We've been busy with scout camps. You've probably seen pictures on my Instagram of playing games with kids at camp. We've traveled. I've been all over the place. So, but now I can finally get back to some YouTube content, and we're going to kick this off with a little discussion on playing in open, public style meetup type board game groups, or playing small private groups of friends. And I came from a kind of a larger group background. I've been part of and have even ran the Ottawa board gaming community for about 6 years now. And it wasn't really until COVID kind of hit that I started playing a whole lot of small groups, because when we weren't allowed to meet, it was in small numbers, like 5 people in a household or less.
Yep.
And so we kept our groups down to 2 or 3 people, 2, 3 or 4 people at a night, and did that as much as we could or were allowed to. There are times where we had to go online and only play online.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of the restrictions in the area. But I mean, Nabil, what
I'm definitely on the other side of this. I prefer smaller private groups, and it's purely because partly because of who I am as a person. I'm just not a big fan of large groups in general, but also when I have done sort of the big game groups in the past, I haven't had great experiences. And part of that is me, I will 100% admit that, but part of it is also just the, who you end up randomly sitting at a table with.
Yeah, and I think that'll be our first subject. We'll try to break this down by subject, because I think we have definitely a few thoughts, some differing, some the same, as well as maybe we can have a healthy discussion, with the community about how we can improve both of these styles of gaming situations. So, let's start with the people. First of all, what made you uncomfortable? I mean, I'll tell you some of the experiences I've seen with other people who've came into our group, but you personally.
Yeah. Well, some of it is. What comes to mind right away is. When you learn a game for the first time and the person and people at the table know the game inside and out, and you just get absolutely wrecked, from turn one. And you don't really have the opportunity to sort of, figure out how all the interlocking mechanisms work together and what the sort of strategies are before someone is already right in your face, obviously, in the game. That to me is not fun, So when I teach a game to someone for the first time, I don't take every turn as an optimal turn, because for me, it's more important that the person that I'm teaching the game to has a good experience with the game. Because then they're more likely to want to play it with me later on, or play other games with me, So that's my main sort of issue with large groups. And that doesn't always happen, obviously. It's just that's happened to me on several occasions, which has kind of soured me on the whole large sort of game group setting.
So you're suggesting players that are overly aggressive.
Yeah.
In their gameplay, can turn new people away.
Yeah, pretty much. If someone's played the game hasn't played the game before, or hasn't played any modern hobby game before, and someone at the table has played the game 100 times and knows every optimal strategy. A really common example of this is Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, it's sort of notorious for having that issue where, if you're sitting next to someone who knows the game really well and you don't, it's just not going to be a fun experience for you. Or for them, really, either. So a lot of people who know Puerto Rico really well will only play it with others who know the game really well, or who are kind of at the same level as them. So like if you're a new person coming into that sort of group, it's not always welcoming.
That's true. And I mean, to take your side of the argument for a minute here, playing in a small group, I think there's a better opportunity to really get to know games together, so that you're all on an equal footing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the thing is, like, this can happen in small groups as well. You know, that's just how some people are. Is they're very aggressive when they play games, and that's just, you know, they're not out to get you. It's just their nature, you know.
And that's definitely it could be a group atmosphere thing.
Yeah.
You know, as a group host, we've encountered a lot of people coming in from aggressive environments that started playing like that. And like Puerto Rico is a great example, because we've had players who, you know, will get upset because, you know, you're playing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I don't mean not playing by the rules. I mean,
you're playing the wrong card at the wrong time.
You're not,
you're
not playing the strategy that they're expecting good players to play.
Yeah.
And it's throwing them off their game, or it's like having the wrong opening chess move, and having a pro player, you know, slap you with, you know, like, oh, you're an amateur. You know, I don't want to play with you. You know, table
the table, game's over.
Because they weren't graceful enough to recognize that, okay, let's, you know, relax a little bit. And yeah, it's definitely group dynamic, and we always push very hard to try to have a more relaxed atmosphere. And I mean, that doesn't always work. And yeah, that could definitely be a problem with any group, and maybe even more so with large groups, that anyone new is going to get turned away.
Yeah, I mean, with larger groups, there's more of a chance that you'll encounter that person, especially, you know, if you're coming into the group, into that sort of setting alone. You know, you don't have anybody that you already know. Whereas a private group, you know, maybe you were invited by somebody you already know really well, and this person has, you know, played with that group several times, and they know that you will have a good experience with those people. So I think it's a bit more, I guess, more safe.
I have a confession to make about this exact subject.
Okay. Yeah.
So we had a gamer start coming to our group who was very much that aggressive alpha gamer, you know, atypical Euro mastermind kind of player, where like if you're not playing exactly as expected, you know, he's not happy.
Right.
And he wanted to be part of the group, so, and we kind of recognized that. And I kind of secretly had an agreement with one of our other co-hosts, and we essentially ganged up and mopped the floor with him. Every week he came, you know, he'd bring out some big heavy Euro, and we kind of secretly cooperated and wiped the floor with him repeatedly. And eventually, I know that sounds bad, but after about a year or two of him coming to the group, and eventually he approached us, not even knowing that we had done this, and said and told us straight up, like, hey, you know, thank you for beating me as hard as you did when I started coming here, because he was like, I didn't realize I had such an ego coming into the group. But now that I've been put in my place and I've had more fun in this group than I've ever had playing board games.
Wow.
Then, because he doesn't feel, he's not stressed out. There's not as much of a push to like have to win to have fun. Yeah. You know, and he was able to then, you know, relax and get to know people better and play more types of games.
That's good.
And broaden his horizons a little bit.
That's good. It's good that he had enough self-awareness to sort of get that message.
Yeah, maybe we weren't doing it the right way. So if you're, I'm not going to name any names, but if you're watching this, I do, you know, I both apologize and
you're welcome.
And you're welcome.
You know what? It's such a difficult topic to broach, though. You know, it's like if somebody at your table or in your group is that sort of alpha gamer, how do you? I mean, maybe this is going off topic from our original discussion.
No,
and this is a whole other discussion in itself.
This still fits with
yeah, like,
the people being the problem.
yeah. So like how do you talk to them about it? How do you bring up that subject of hey, maybe take it down a notch, or do you just leave it alone and let this person sort of wreak havoc on your group?
So I will argue on my side. A large group, it's easier to either not play with those people.
Yeah.
If you find out who they are, or those people can play with people who are like them or don't mind getting pushed around. When you're in a small group and you have a player who is very much the alpha player, or someone who tends to, like, once they see they're losing, they'll throw the game,
just shut down,
or they'll shut down,
yeah.
or they'll refuse to play.
Yeah.
If you're playing with someone in a small group who are like part of your, like, maybe your regular groups or not, it is harder to distance yourself from them.
True, without destroying the entire group, dismantling the group.
Without dismantling the group or causing a lot of unfriendly tension.
Yeah.
It's easier if you're constantly cycling around through 50 different people. It's easier to just play with them less, or play different styles of games with them where that's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, no, that is very true. I mean, I think when it comes to large game group settings, I don't think I haven't stuck with them long enough to sort of to figure out who I mesh better with versus who I don't. So that's on me for sure. In general, I mean, I just have more fun, in a smaller setting with people that I know.
I mean, that is a plus too of having a smaller group, is you already know everybody. Yeah. Right. So if you're uncomfortable with strangers and or just you just want to play with people you like,
yeah,
you have a higher chance of playing with people you like at a small private group,
for sure,
than with whoever randomly showed up that day.
Yeah. The other thing to consider is also, what are you going there for? Are you going there just because you want to play board games and doesn't matter what the other sort of factors don't matter, or are you more interested in the social aspect of it and meeting people and chatting and being that sort of side of things? For me, it's a bit of both. I love chunky board games that I can really sink my teeth into and block everything else out sometimes. But at the same time, I also really like having a regular group of friends that I can get together with and have fun, and we chat and we laugh, and yeah, for sure. So there's that side of it too. So that, it depends on what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, I will have to say I almost wouldn't have made a small group if I wasn't already part of a big group first.
Yeah.
Right? Because when I came into the hobby, I didn't have all this.
Yeah.
I had some games. I played some with my wife, and at one point she basically said, like, "Hey, you need to get out more." We had small kids, and there's a point in your life where especially after when you've got a couple of babies in the house where you don't get out. Mm-hmm. Like, all of your old friends are gone or distant. I never really have much anyways. And she said, like, "Hey, you like board gaming? Why don't you try looking for people to play with? Maybe this is a way for you to get out of the house and socialize some." And so I ended up finding the Ottawa board gaming community was just getting started at the time. And if it wasn't for that group, I wouldn't have met, a lot of the close friends I have today. Yep. I wouldn't have met, anyone you've seen on this channel playing games here or talking with me, have all came in one way or another through meeting them through groups like this.
And that's a good point.
I'm thankful for it in that sense.
Yeah.
So you could have an already established group of friends. Maybe something came of that. My brother-in-law has his 4 or 5 buddies he grew up with, and they all got into board gaming together, and they're still gaming together. So that's a totally different perspective. But
yeah, that's also that's tough to do too, though, because different people, are often at different points in their lives, and like I have a bunch of friends that I used to play games with on a regular basis, and now we don't really because A, COVID, but B, they have all had kids as well, so they're very small children, so it's impossible to get out of the house, almost impossible, difficult. So
Making friends as an adult is hard.
it is very
Surprisingly
challenging.
hard. Kids don't care,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
my youngest Danny can just walk up to any kid at the park and they're like best friends within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He is.
Not the case as an adult oftentimes. So if I'm in that sense, like having a space with a bunch of like-minded people who are all there for the same reason is super beneficial.
Yeah, I will mention as a downside, sometimes larger groups can have undesirables walk in. I mean, and I know that's a harsh term, but maybe they're gamers who are not friendly. Maybe they are not necessarily because they are actively trying to be inappropriate or aggressive or putting people off, but maybe they just don't know any better. They don't have they don't have the social skills or experience.
I was just gonna say, let's face it. Like a lot of people, not a lot of people have the social skills. Well, I shouldn't say that, but many people don't have the social skills to and the self-awareness to sort of check themselves.
Yeah, and it could be because of some sort of a something they're dealing with, or a part of their life, or
you never know.
Some sort of mental chemical imbalance. They're just not capable of keeping themselves from crossing that line. And in a large group setting, we've had issues with people who are approaching girls inappropriately, or trying to take things beyond just a fun board game meetup in a way that is making people uncomfortable. And girls, unfortunately, tend to lose out on this. Usually, they're the ones that get turned off by someone, and really it's a fault of the guys who are going after them, right? Like the girls are just coming to have fun with their friends, and the last thing they want is someone to approach them and make them uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that is definitely a downside. We've had to talk to people in the past about that. Some people have had to leave because of that. Sometimes the location or the restaurant handles the removal of said inappropriate people, or preventing them from coming back because they're making other customers.
Yeah, and it's not good for business either for the restaurant, right?
No, exactly, and it's unfortunate because we've seen lots of people come in and go, and never come back because one unfortunate interaction that has soured their entire view of the group. Whereas generally there's lots of great people. That wouldn't have would done that.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that happened to me that I was mentioning earlier. I mean, it was one or two negative experiences with various game groups that kind of soured me on the whole concept. But you bring up a good point where it's important that the group has active and responsible moderators.
True. Yes, and that was largely our job as hosts. Because our group was free, we a lot of people would just show up, or through Meetup, would just see a free event and come to it. So we had enough people who were, the game teachers or the hosts or whatever, who would try to get out there first and be the first point of contact that new people saw as they came in. So they would immediately see a friendly face, welcoming, introducing them. Maybe getting them into a good, safe group of people and teaching them games and helping them to bridge into the hobby and the group in a safe and friendly way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you need somebody to do that, to be sort of that first point of contact, and also to get a sense of like where that person might be gaming wise, like what do they play, what do they like to play, where are they at, sort of thing. Because when I started to dabble in the large sort of game group settings. I hadn't really played a whole lot of board games at the time. I was just kind of getting into it. And so I, just by my own sort of, I don't know, I just sat down at the table and I saw games that were like, ooh, this looks pretty. Like, what is this? Mm-hmm. And they ended up being some pretty heavy, like, Euro games that I was just like, I was like scratching my head, like, what am I doing here? Like, I was having a hard time with the rules. And then at the same time, everybody else had a really good idea of what the game already was about. So they were just like making these moves, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, if someone comes in and says, I've only ever played backgammon, I'm not going to throw them into a brass Birmingham game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I'm going to suggest that they join the group that's playing Ticket to Ride or something.
Right?
You know,
so it's really great to have someone to do that for new people coming in.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely the hobby needs more ambassadors to the hobby. And I think the hobby wouldn't grow as fast as it did if there wasn't as many people as there are at groups. Mm-hmm. I mean, and hopefully all groups have a number of people who are actively trying to welcome in new people. I mean, sure, there are other points of entry too. Maybe families or friends just pick something up and recommend it, and that's a great way too. You know, you can easily get a small group going, but if a friend invites you over to play. But, I mean, not all existing friends may be into the hobby, or significant others may not be into the hobby as much as you are. and that's okay. They don't have to be. They may come eventually or not.
Yep, for sure.
So I'm gonna shift subjects slightly here to let's go to games. We've got games sitting out here right now, and kind of a little bit to talk about why these do and don't work in those various group settings. And I think this is they're both strengths and cons to having either a small group or a large group. For example, I've got Werewolf here. Werewolf only works, like, it says 5 in the box. That's a lie. You need, I think, at least 7.
You need a large group.
Plus a moderator to effectively run it. You're probably not going to have that many people playing on a weeknight household size group. Mm-hmm. But something that would shine, or any of the other social deduction games out there, Werewolf is just the most known example, really shine at those large groups. And I mean, I've played this with my scout group, where we've had 14 to 18 people in a game, and they love it. They ask for it every camp for me to bring out Werewolf and for us to play social games, because it works with that social aspect. You don't have to be, a super gamer who knows all the rules. Like a good moderator is, I mean, this is Werewolf in particular. They're easier to learn games.
Yeah, it's all more about the narrative.
But you can have one person who knows really well how to play just about any social deduction game, whether it's like Resistance and Avalon or Codenames or something. If one person can kind of run it, no one else really needs to know how to play. They just need to follow directions and have a good time.
Yep.
Camelot is another good group game. Sure, it plays at 2 or 3 people. It says 3 people, but I've had bigger stand-up moments playing at 6 to 8 people than I've had in a smaller group. There's more insanity happening. There's more silliness kind of going around the table with those large group of games. Happy Salmon is not nearly as much fun when you're all slapping each other than, it's more fun when you're doing it at a restaurant and everyone's standing around watching and laughing.
Like, what is it? Yeah.
What's going on than if you're like, 3 or 4 guys sitting around a dining room table playing Happy Salmon, Yeah,
it doesn't really work as well.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
But on the other side, with a small group game.
Yep. You've got like something like Mage Knight that is honestly primarily played as a solo game. But, it works. It says you can play up to 4 people, but I don't know that I would play it with more than 3 maybe. And you'd have to dedicate, the evening to like, that would be the game you play that evening. But like, this is one of my favorite games.
Yeah, I've seen some long games come out during big groups, but rarely. Like,
it's also like
this is almost a Saturday game. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
You take it out and it's an all-day game.
It's also, this one in particular is a bit of a table hog too. So like, you can't really play it in like a pub or a restaurant. doesn't work as well. But
That's true. Yeah, that's another good point. Is the size, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll get to environment is my next point. But the types of games you can come out as limiting. Campaign games like Gloomhaven, the big boy sim back there, is not something that you'll typically see out in a large group
because you might not be playing with the same people from night to night, right? So it's hard to do a campaign with the same people.
Yeah, whereas if you're seeing people on a regular basis, you can really dive down into a game.
Yep, and even that's challenging.
Say for story-based games where you're using like an app or something and playing audibles that are part of the game, would also work better in a small setting. It's easier to hear them.
Yep.
Or
like 2-player games.
Or like 2-player games. You rarely play 2 or 3-player games in large group settings, just because there's so many people who want to play games.
Yeah.
You don't need. I mean, there's a great place for 2-player games, but there's almost so much options for larger group games that you almost never see them coming out.
Yeah, oftentimes it's almost easier to get one other person to sit down with you and play a game than it is to get like 6 other people. So when you have those 6 people who dedicate that time and who want to play, take advantage and play a game that you wouldn't get to pull out otherwise.
Right, yeah. Organizing 6 people to come to your house for a big game is much more difficult, matching everyone's schedules than just a 2, 3, or 4-player game.
Yeah.
For sure. And so jumping on to environment. So talk about things like app-based games. Right? Restaurants are potentially noisy.
Yep.
Right? They do have food and drink, maybe not, maybe it's more costly, but people can get whatever they want. It is an option. But again, at the same time, if people are bringing snacks or the host provides some drinks and snacks, it's also cheaper doing it at home too.
Yep.
The tables are often smaller. Especially with COVID. Most of our bigger in-person groups are limited to 4 people per table out of safety precautions. So you don't see as often bigger groups, but tables won't fit. Like we just played a game of Perseverance the other day.
Yep.
And even the first campaign or the first episode of Perseverance took up a lot of room.
Yeah, it's a beast on the table, but it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I'll do a review at some point of Perseverance, but it's you're limited to space.
Yeah,
you're not going to have Mage Knight sprawling.
Yeah.
On a table that is, one piece of this table at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Like at home, I have a good sized dining table, and if I play Mage Knight on my own, just myself, it takes up a good chunk of the table. So at a pub, like, there's just no way.
Yeah, there are definitely good options for pub-sized games out there, but you are limited. So there's a lot of pros and cons to both. Yep. And I mean, I think both are great options. If you're comfortable with public groups or small groups, there's something for everybody at each. And I do recommend, if you are looking for either small groups or public groups, right, check out the local Facebook gaming groups, check out meetups. Reddit occasionally will have things like this, or BGG might have area-based forums. Mm-hmm. If you look around, you can find people to game with. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I think if you're into gaming and you're looking for people to game with, like that I think is probably it's a great place to start.
And the world has never been better for gaming. I mean, especially now that we're getting past COVID, there are more people than ever who are into games or open to gaming than before. So really, there's never been a better time to get into the hobby.
Yeah, it's just you're spoiled for choice, almost to the point where it can be overwhelming. Yeah, or your significant other seems to think you have a problem of some kind. Whether you agree or not.
and if you can't find anybody to play with, there's always solo gaming.
Yeah, exactly. Solo gaming is legitimate, totally. I remember when I was a kid, I used to play Monopoly solo sometimes, and my siblings thought it was pretty...
You won't ruin any friendships playing by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work as nearly as well as if you're playing with even one other person, but But yeah, so solo gaming has come a long way since
Very
then.
much so, and I think it's becoming more and more acceptable. It's not quite at
Yeah.
the same point where as like solo video gaming,
True.
right? But video gaming went from an arcade public group kind of thing to a in the house solo thing, and then with internet it has become more of a almost even more so of a public thing. And a solo board game is no different than sitting down with your Switch or PlayStation or computer and
Yeah.
playing a game by yourself.
I totally agree.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's the same. It's the same. Or sitting down and playing solitaire,
Solitaire with the
or
cards.
Sudoku,
Yeah.
or doing a puzzle.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of feel as those things.
Yeah, it's more. I think it's more deliberate than playing a video game. It requires more effort to sort of set it up, play it,
Learn the
tear it down,
rules.
learn the rules, tear it down.
Yeah.
Aside from just flicking a switch and having everything taught to you in the first 5 minutes of the game. But that's a whole other discussion.
Definitely. Well, anyways, till then, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments. What do you prefer? Do you prefer solo board gaming, small group gaming, large group gaming? How did you find your group? Let us know, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.